Hi, thank you for joining me. This is Deborah Hearst, the Artistic Director of Guest House Theater, and I am joined today by my good friend, Tim Sauers. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
He is the Vice President of Programming at Overture Center here in Madison. He came to Madison about 12 years ago from Chicago, where he was a theater reviewer, and he has been at Overture for, well, I just said, what, 12 years? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the whole 12 years. I
Yeah.
moved I moved here to work at Overture Center.
I can't imagine Overture Center without Tim Sauers.
Oh,
Absolutely. And
you're
he
kind.
started the Jerry Awards at Overture Center, which is how many schools across across the state are participated in the Jerry Awards last year?
Right around 100.
That's just it.
I know, it's amazing,
It
right?
is amazing. It is amazing, and that's a program for high school kids, right? Did you want to
Right.
say just a quick thing as to what that is for anybody that doesn't know?
Well, the Jerry Awards is a high school musical theater program that
Hmm.
recognizes and encourages and honors excellence in high school musical theater. And uh, schools have their show adjudicated by three of our reviewers,
Hmm.
and they get written critique along with nomination for awards. And at the end of the year, we give out all the Jerry Awards, put on a big show. And we also then participate in the Jimmy Awards, which is the national program, where we get
And
to send where we get to send a male and a female
mhm.
student to compete nationally, which is great for them, right?
And you guys did your Jerry Award show virtually this year, and
We
it
did
was
it virtually.
phenomenal.
It really was
It
phenomenal.
really was fantastic.
It is something. I mean, I when I was watching it, we did it virtually. When I was watching the show and
Hmm.
having all the interactions with everybody on Facebook, it really felt like I was kind of there. It was one of the best experiences that I had without
Hmm.
having that live experience, right?
Well, kudos to you guys you guys for figuring out a way to really make that magical for them. Because I know that this kind of disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic, it really affected those kids a lot too.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, a lot of them were very disappointed
of
that they
course.
didn't have the opportunity to come together to put on a show. And
Hmm.
many of them have the dreams to be as part of the Jimmy Awards and to go to New York. And I feel kind of bad for, not bad, that's the wrong word. I feel like it's unfortunate
Hmm.
that those who are, you know, graduating and pursuing degrees in performing arts are going to go to colleges and not have that opportunity to perform this year, right?
Right.
They will only be able to take classes either virtually or small ones in person. And
Hmm.
it's kind of hard, right? Because
Yeah.
that's where you meet everybody, and that's where you have a really good time and bond with people and learn.
Well, that freshman year in college, especially if you're in theater or some performing arts or really anything, when you're on an athletic team, anything like that, that first year is where you really solidify that bond with your group, right?
Oh
Of
yeah.
And so it's hard. I can only imagine for those graduates this year that are going to college next year. Um, Another thing that I wanted to mention is that, like I said before, you were a theater reviewer in Chicago, and you're also a Tony voter, correct?
Yeah, yeah, that is correct.
And
That's one of the
so,
great perks of my job, going to see, all the Broadway shows.
and so, basically, your life is live performance.
That's right.
Very,
I
yeah.
see hundreds of shows a year, whether I travel to see them in New
Hmm.
York or I go to Vegas to see shows. I drive down to Chicago. I drive up to Minneapolis, and then I see all the shows that come into
Hmm.
Overture Center. And then I go out to see all those high school musicals, right? Two
Hmm.
across the state, not 100 of them, but I see quite a few. And I would say that at least every week, I see a minimum of one show, probably two.
And is this about the time? This is about the time of year that the Fringe Festival that you went to see the Fringe Festival last year, right?
I was at the Fringe Festival as we speak this
Hmm.
year at this time. And it was one of the most exciting events I've ever been to, because everybody who's in that town are seeing shows. They're sitting in pubs talking about shows. You see people on the street reading what's happening. Everybody is there to see shows.
It's so immersive.
Now, it's so immersive, and they have a Fringe online version of that. But it's just not the same. It's not the same. Like, there's no live shows. They're doing some of their virtual, like, panels and discussions, because they do a lot of educational work too. So they're having those online, some of them. But, you know, with the time difference, I was like, oh, I want to do that. Let's see. 1, 2, oh, that's 5 a.m. I'm not doing that. Right? And you meet people. That one of the other things that I loved, like, here's one of my favorite stories, if I can tell it, from the Fringe last year. I went by myself with a grant that I received, and I saw something like 30 some shows, and I registered as a arts professional there. So I had a lot of other opportunities for Overture and for myself when I was there. And so, you know, I didn't know anybody, and I was at a show, and I was sitting next to this gentleman, and he was in for the weekend from London, and he was just there to see shows. He flew, you know, he flew in or drove in. I don't know how you get there from, I don't know what the difference is. He was there just seeing shows. Then later that weekend, I saw him again, and he was sitting right next behind me, and he came forward and he goes, "How are you?" And I was like, "Oh, so nice to see you." Blah 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 blah. And we were talking and saw that show, and then I saw him a third time when we were both standing, and like it was like no assigned seat. So you just, at the order that you're coming in, they're kind of pushing you around. And I went down where there was a couple of seats and took one, and there was a seat beside me. Right when the curtain was getting ready to go, this guy comes in and sits down, and we looked at each other, and I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. So after the show, he's like, I think we were meant to go have dinner.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful.
We went and had dinner and drinks after the show, and that was just totally fun. Like, how funny was that? That can't happen when I'm sitting at home watching something virtually, right?
No. And, you know, the reason that I thought that this might be a great conversation to have is because back when things started to shut down in March, and we were having a lot of virtual meetings at Overture, I remember you saying in one of the meetings that, you know, a huge part of your life just ended out of nowhere.
Well,
it's just
my
such
social.
a hard...
It was my big part of my social life. You know, when I travel to New York, I have friends in New York or colleagues that we meet and go to shows and have dinner. And, you know, a good friend of mine, we fly to Vegas a couple times a year. And that's when we spend a nice quality time together, and we're seeing shows while we're there and having dinner. And even here, as I travel throughout Wisconsin or travel to Chicago or Minneapolis, it's all about having social time with people, going to see something that you love to do. And so when that is completely stripped away from you, and it's your main activity that you do, like it's social, and it's my, you know,
it's your main connection to the people in your life.
Well, yeah, but it's also my main interest.
Yeah.
You know, somebody asked me one time, they're like, what's your hobby? And I'm like, what are hobbies? Right?
People in theater don't have hobbies.
We don't have hobbies. Like the things that, you know, seeing shows, going to movies, traveling, and dining out. Those are my interests in life. And all of them have been taken away, right? And usually I combine them all. Right. Because when I go on a vacation somewhere or travel somewhere, there's always shows involved. I always see shows. It doesn't matter where I am.
No matter where.
I see shows. And it doesn't matter what level it's on.
Right.
Right. It can be everything from Broadway to community theater to high schools. No matter where I am, I go see shows.
The best show that I ever saw was in the basement of a building at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And it was just these two guys, and there was like maybe 25 or 30 audience members, and that was it, because it was
Right.
so small. And it
Yeah.
was the most memorable experience I've had in theater. And I was so
Right.
little, you know,
Yeah.
but they were so committed to the storytelling, and it was just, you were there with them, you know, and it was just wonderful. And it was a total surprise. It was like, I'll go see this show, right? Like you were saying at the Fringe Festival, you're like, I'll go see this show, you know?
Yeah, that's what I did, right? Like, that's the thing with what's so great about the Fringe, when tickets are so cheap
Mm-hmm.
or free, that you're like, yeah, why not?
You're right.
Why not fill every moment that you're there? Like I didn't do anything but see shows and eat.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even do much touristy stuff, right? Like,
Yeah. I think I saw
don't
the
care.
castle.
That's
like,
what
that was
went.
it. Yeah.
I went to the castle too, and after like 20 minutes, I was like, okay, I've seen the castle, right? Like,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Gorgeous,
So-
you know.
So when something like this happens, like, how are you dealing with it? How are you dealing with the loss of it?
Well, you know,
It'll come
replacing it-
back, but
replacing
Yeah.
it with online, right? Not necessarily online performance stuff, but
Mhm.
gives you the opportunity to go, I'm doing the same thing, like whether it's Netflix or Hulu or like,
Mhm.
oh, that looks kind of interesting. Let me try it, right? They're hoping to find something that you just love.
so
And I
sort of,
found a couple shows that I did, but my normal right now every day is the Great British Bake Off.
it's the best.
It is the best. And here's why this is good TV. It's good TV because it's not about them winning a bunch of money because they get a cake stand and some flowers.
That's right.
But it's personal. It's about they want to feel good about their baking and be judged and get this accolade. And they're also great. It's a great cast show. They're so nice. They're so warm.
Mhm.
So I bake something every week.
That's so fun.
And then every night I watch that in a row. I eat what I baked that week. Right. So
That is
I'm almost
awesome.
done though. I think I only have like 2 seasons left, and then I've seen them all, and I'm going to feel a big loss when that happens, because that was a great find. I would never have sat and watched it because I don't watch a lot of TV because I'm not home a lot to watch it. And so when I do find something, it's great.
Well, they do have a series of master classes too. So when you're done with the seasons, you can check out Paul Hollywood and Mary Berry giving you a little master class. So it's kind of like a helps with the withdrawal. Do you know what I mean?
We don't want to have a soggy bottom.
No, that's right.
I love all the pronunciations of stuff.
Yeah.
Oregano instead of oregano. Like I love all that. I love it. I just love it.
Good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Are you how are you getting out very much? Because like I know for me, the only way that I've survived this is by being outside and like I've hit trails and parks that I have never seen, and I've lived here for 10 years.
Yeah, that's fortunate, right? Yeah. It's fortunate that this has happened during the summertime where we do have the opportunity to do that. And it gives you less claustrophobic feel.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that I love about working at Overture. When I moved here, and you know, the lovely winters we have in the Midwest, working at Overture, you never felt claustrophobic.
No, that's a good point.
Or cabin fever, because it was you were in this massive building. Now, when I'm not in that massive building and winter goes to hit, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that, but. You know, I have a lovely back porch. I live on Lake Mendota, so it's like another room in my apartment during the summer. And I would hate when that gets taken away from me. So
I think a lot of us are a little nervous about winter. Just like I feel like the things that I've used to cope with it, I'm going to have to come up with a whole new system for when it gets really cold out.
Right.
And I'm not sure.
Right. Well, hopefully it'll be a little more under control by winter.
Right.
Let's hope that happens. It's not looking good, but let's hope that happens. And that people are smarter than what they're being now.
Well, you know, so one friend of mine said something to me the other day that really stuck with me. She lives in New York, and she also lives alone. And she just said that she feels like her whole world is two-dimensional. And I wonder if, like, if you're feeling that, even with like the shows that you're watching and all the Zoom meetings that you have and that kind
Well,
of stuff.
I'm in a route. It feels routine,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like I have a routine, which I like a routine,
Mm-hmm.
but it's boring, right? Like it's a boring routine. I get up, I do the same thing, I have the same kind of day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every now and then I get to see someone,
That's good.
and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I'm excited. Here's what I'm most excited about today.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra
Mm-hmm.
has been doing their concerts on the square this summer, and they did the first two as drive-ins of some of their past shows that
Mm-hmm.
were highlights for them. Well, this week and next week, they're actually doing live concert at Brees Stevens Field.
Oh, and that's not very far away.
No, and then they're going to have drive-in to watch that live. Now, the downside is only 25 people can be in the audience to watch it.
Right.
But they're also broadcasting it on WORT, and I'm hosting
Oh, nice.
a pre-show hour. We've done some recorded, and some of it will be live.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to be at Brees Stevens Field, and I'm going to see a live show in the first time since March.
I'm really glad. That's really nice.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled to be asked to do that. And so last week I recorded all these interviews with some of their partners and some of the artists, and now I get to be a host for the show.
I like that.
I do like that.
And one thing that I was struck with that you had said earlier, that you've just sort of replaced the live theater with shows. It strikes me that it's still storytelling, right? You've just kind of transferred.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
all about storytelling, and I really that
right.
resonates with me.
The only thing that I can't do,
mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at watching the performing arts virtually.
Yeah.
Right. Like some people have recorded shows, or they're doing some
mm-hmm.
kind of recorded live stuff, and at about 10-15 minutes into something like that, I'm ready to move on to something else, because it just doesn't resonate for me in the same way. But now we had a concert last week or the week before with
mm-hmm.
Christopher Jackson from Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And he was set up in a studio in New York City, a live theater,
mm-hmm.
and he did a live show. And, it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I sat and watched that whole hour, 15-minute show and felt very connected with the artist. The only thing that was missing in that was there was no applause. Right? So, and I thought he was really a good artist because he rose above that. Right? Because when you're putting on a show and you get an applause, that moves you in a new way, right? Mm-hmm. Or energizes you in a way that, watching something without an audience just doesn't. It's like when you do a show, right? When you put on a play, right?
Yep.
It's not until that audience comes in till it's really finished.
Well, the audience is part of the experience for the people on stage, as well as that you experience the whole thing together, and that creates it.
Right, particularly when you're in a comedy.
Yes,
like when I was in plays, I was of course the funny guy, right? And I was cast as all the funny guys. The one gets beat up and knocked around with all the physical antics,
mm-hmm.
and I could only guesstimate how something was gonna go in a rehearsal. But once you had that audience, man, you knew, right? Mm-hmm. It changed. It
changes the timing. The rhythm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Comedy particularly, right? And so I missed that. I do a lot of the hosting stuff too. Mm-hmm. And I have all my, cocktails with Tim and Cara peeps, all of our Broadway subscribers and donors. And,
mm-hmm.
It's really hard. The other night we did a nightcap with Tim and Cara after that Christopher Jackson, and people didn't want to hang up. We did a Zoom, and people just wanted to. We were just chatting about nothing. Yeah. My sore shoulder. We were chatting about my sore shoulder, and then we were the debate on whether or not I was going to drive to Pennsylvania to see my mother, and you know, and whether I should do it now and this time or not. Right? Yeah. That's what we were talking about, and so that's, you know, I miss that. Because they're all my kind of friends, really. I mean, we have personal relationships, and so like all of that just wiped away.
I think that a lot of this these virtual shows and this virtual art is a way to keep a thread with those things that we love, so that we're not disconnected when things come back. Does that make sense? Because I don't personally, like I don't personally, the same with you. It doesn't resonate with me the same way, but if I'm watching, like say the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra, and I've always loved to see them live, and I'm listening to the music, it reminds me of why I want to see them on the other side of this. And that thread is what keeps us going, I think. I think it's so important that we keep doing it.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's experimentation time.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
Like everybody's much more, everybody's less of a critic, right? And no one's ripping anybody apart for trying stuff online. And, you know, and so that's great. Experiment, right? Because you never know what will come out of it. And right? We're going to see a different world. We're going to see a different world. And we're going to see a world where live and virtual are going to come together in some ways and be kind of interesting.
And I just want the artists and the people in the industry, and whether it's the backstage or on stage or in the offices, wherever, I just want them to be here on the other side of this. And so if they're trying something new, I'm going to support them, right? Like if they're trying this or that, like we're all just here and say, okay, let's get through this together. Because I don't know how else to look at it, because it's so monumental.
It is monumental.
So,
but I think that you're going to have better, more collegial relationships among people than you had prior to. But people also forget. Like I remember 9/11, right? I remember 9/11, and I was in Chicago, and I had a trip to New York in October, a month afterwards, to do some work. And I've never heard the city without a sound before, right? There was no noise. There was no honking of cabs. There were no people shouting at each other. It was this somber, quiet place. Well, then, of course, that all got forgotten, and New York went back to its old ways. And now New York was hit again with this virus. And I can only imagine what that will look like when that goes to heal itself, right? Like a friend of mine sent pictures the other day. She was walking out in the city. She lives there. She was walking out in the city, taking pictures of all the U-Hauls because everybody was moving out. I just read an article that there was something like 13,000 empty apartments right now available in New York City.
Yeah, it's a low, like it's an all-time low when it comes to rents.
It's all the people who got hurt by this COVID, and I would say many of them are our industry, right? The industry of the performing arts. Those people left because then the service industry isn't even there to support them as they're looking for other jobs.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think, I mean, that's part of what art is about, is to remind everyone what we did go through, right? Like maybe
I'm sure we're going to have a lot of work about this later.
I'm sure
there's going to be movies on COVID, plays on COVID.
I'm sure.
Or pandemics or something.
Yeah.
Or there's stuff happening now that people are, you know, the great thing is we might see a lot of great work coming out of this because people are sitting around creating. Writers are writing, right? They have time to write. They're writing.
Yeah.
In whatever form that takes. So you know,
Well, that's how, that's what we'll keep, right? We'll keep the hope that at the
that's
end
right.
of this, the art itself will keep us through it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me in this conversation, Tim. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It was a lot of fun to talk to you.
Nice to see
And
you.
I hope that your two-dimensional world doesn't feel so two-dimensional sometimes.
Right. And same to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.